Okay, thank you very much. It was an honor to be invited to speak here today, and two of us will be speaking, so we'll try to get through things as quickly as we can. Let's see, here we go. So sustainable rubber is what we're going to talk about, and it's a U.S. National Science Foundation project recently funded between multiple universities with some industry collaboration. And if you look at the picture on the left there, that's a high school mural, a very large high school mural in Akron, Ohio, which was once known as the rubber capital of the United States. And in those days, a lot of the tire companies were based in Akron. George Seiberling developed the tire and the Model T. So a lot of the industry had headquarters there, research and development, and tire production. Cooper Tire, Goodyear, Bridgestone, and other companies. So these are the two of us who will be speaking today. Natural rubber and latex, you may be not too familiar with this, but most all of our rubber that we use comes from the Hevea brasiliensis tree, the natural rubber. And that's processed in Southeast Asia. 40 to 50% of the rubber we use in production is this natural rubber form. The reason that is because natural rubber has properties that synthetic rubber does not. And synthetic rubber cannot substitute for natural rubber. One of those is that it's a cis polymer. That means all of the racemic centers of the molecule are the same. Whereas synthetic rubber, only about as much as 95% is about the limit of what you can get as the same material for the same polymeric material. So natural rubber stretches further. It's more wear resistant, and it has better properties. So the highest demand for this type of high quality rubber is in tires and passenger tires. Airplane tires have the highest proportion of natural rubber compared to synthetic. Rubber is also used in countless different products where these properties are required. Latex gloves, shoes, but also many different industrial products. The global market is about $48 billion and expected to increase to about 65 in 2030. But at this time, right now, we're at peak rubber. You may have heard about peak oil. We've reached peak rubber. There's no more supply coming from Southeast Asia. That has to do with competition with palm oil. Also, rainforests were destroyed to create these plantations. There's no more land left to do this on. So we've reached peak rubber. We're expected to have the demand for rubber increase by 40, 50% over the coming decades. Everyone in China wants to drive a car. Many other areas are driving cars and using rubber for different applications. One of the issues with the natural rubber from Hevea brasiliensis is it essentially came from trees from South America that were taken by a scientist to Southeast Asia through England and the Netherlands and planted in that location. So the genetic diversity of that crop is very low. It's not grown in South America anymore because of a blight, which infected the plantations and destroyed them, making them unprofitable. So all of the rubber is produced now in Southeast Asia. In the past, there were no direct flights from South America to these regions because of the danger of transporting this pathogen. The trees themselves take a long time to grow, so 6 to 7 years. So if you're trying to address a loss or a change in supply, you really have to plan 7 to 8 years out in advance. So the potential for high prices over that period of time is huge. The production itself is not kept up with demand. There's also climate environmental vulnerability, as we see everywhere. The labor used for this is a low-paid subsistence type of labor. And increasing the land for this would involve destroying rainforests in those areas. So we were looking at two alternatives. One is called guayuli, which grows here in Texas. Another is called Russian or rubber dandelion. And they have a couple different interesting aspects to them. Guayuli, if you look at this, this gel, protein gel, what you see is guayuli and ficus. That's another, not really a commercially viable plant, but they have only a couple of proteins in them. Whereas Taraxacum, the Russian dandelion, which we're looking at, as well as Hevea, have many proteins, and that's what leads to allergies and the development of rubber allergies, especially when used in dental rubber materials. So guayuli is a hypoallergenic rubber, which can be used for those medical applications. So some of the benefits of these two plants, it's domestic supply of rubber. It's not coming from Southeast Asia. They also have valuable co-products. Today, these co-products are worth as much or more than the rubber itself. So inulin is something you should have in any yogurt that you eat. It also can be converted very easily to ethanol, just like corn starch would be. It's a very similar type of molecule. The highest value, though, would be inulin. Guayuli produces a resin that can be used as a biofuel with not much conversion. Also, dandelion's a biennial crop, so you could grow it within 6 months if you had a supply interruption or an issue going on in Southeast Asia. Two challenges are, unlike the rubber tree where you just tap the tree and get the rubber year over year, you have to take the whole plant, essentially. You can regrow guayuli to a certain extent, but the other thing is when you're harvesting dandelion, you're going into the soil. So you're taking this root out of the ground, affecting soil organic matter as you do that. So it probably would be a rotational crop where you're building up carbon over the other crops that you're growing. The other issue is it's not coming out of the tree as latex. It's harvested as a whole root, and that whole root or that whole plant that you've harvested must be processed then to extract the rubber in a usable form. And if you look at the standards for natural rubber, they say 99% purity, which is difficult to get from these types of biomass feedstocks. So the goal of our program is called the Transformation of American Rubber Through Domestic Innovation for Supply Security, or TARDIS. And the goal is to develop and integrate the emerging biological and technical underpinnings for domestic natural rubber production while broadening economic, workforce, and societal impact. So it has 3 pillars, really. Convergent research to develop crops that have a high yield in rubber, can be grown in our agricultural lands today. Engineering workforce development, people with a broad understanding of biomaterials, how to process them, how to grow them, and then an innovation ecosystem. In order to get to an economy with these rubbers, we need to start at a small scale, producing high-value products, and work towards this commodity scale, which would be used for tire production. So this is some of the team. We actually have 7 different universities involved in this program. There's the Ohio State University is the lead institution. We have another number of scientists working in that there, and North Carolina State, Caltech, Texas Tech, and UC Merced are partner institutions. There's really 3 focus areas of this group of scientists. One is crop engineering, which we'll hear about in a minute, latex and rubber engineering, and then bioengineering. The extraction part is what I'll talk a little bit about. It's both characterization of the latex coming out. The rubber in these plants has 2 forms, solid rubber and latex. So in a tree, when you cut the tree, you get latex, 100%. You can let that coagulate to form a solid rubber product, and that's usually what you ship across the ocean to Akron to make tires out of. But that has also valuable uses in making gloves and other things that you can only make from latex. The dandelion has mostly solid rubber. You can get a little bit of latex out of it, but usually that would be useful only for these solid rubber products. Guayuli can be, some of the guayuli can be used as latex, and some of it is used as solid rubber. So there's a lot of engineering going to the extraction, defining and refining mechanical properties of these materials, and then developing products that can get us through this commercial hurdle towards larger scale production. So this is an example of some of the things we've done so far. During the Second World War, nearly every agriculture experiment station in the United States grew the Russian dandelion to supply rubber that was cut off from by the Japanese. So those plants were grown at that time, and they built a pilot plant, this is called the ESCU process, in the 1940s to produce rubber from those plants. After that period, scientists believed they could make rubber that was synthetic and had the same properties as natural rubber, which hasn't been the case up to today. So we still need natural rubber. We've started with this process and built a pilot plant at Ohio State University, which uses some of the technology we've learned from places like NREL for processing lignocellulosic biomass. If you look at where the rubber is in the rubber dandelion, it's within cells. So it's within a sheath of cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin, which must be removed so that we have rubber at a 99 to 99% purity. In addition to these, the rubber within these lacticifers, they're called, is inulin. Inulin is a polymer of fructose with a glucose terminal chain, so it's very similar to starch. It can be used in the same way to make ethanol, but also products and food products. So along with this, to guide this development is techno-economic analysis and life cycle analysis. So we've done some work on this already. This is some preliminary results from our LCA analysis for the production of TK, the dandelion. What you can see here is that the greenhouse gas emissions for both the dandelion and guaiuli overall are about half of that of hevea. Part of that is due to transportation, when you're transporting these materials from Southeast Asia. So I'm going to turn it over to Catherine.
Okay, so how do we step back and talk about the crop production part? What we want to do is put sustainability into practice and talk about how do we go from the crops to the systems that are going to be producing our gloves or our airplane tires, et cetera. So what we start with is germplasm and creating this integrated pipeline to go from germplasm to field and benchmark testing the whole way, where we're looking at these indicators, these markers, to improve yield, improve production, using digital agriculture and technology to make better decisions quickly, and then creating these adaptable systems where we're looking at the feedback that our producers and our stakeholders are talking about and want us to address. So whenever we're talking about crop development, we want to understand and improve our crops. We want to make sure that our latex and rubber and everything, we know how they form and accumulate in the plant so we can improve their yield. We can improve the quality of that latex or rubber molecule. We also want to make sure that the germplasm that we're producing is going to be fit in the field and able to produce what we see in the lab in the field. And so that's why we're designing sustainable farming systems that are more efficient in water use, in nutrient and fertilizer inputs. We're looking at soil health and management while making sure that the stress tolerance of the crops in the regions that they are being farmed are suitable. And that's going to help ensure plant health and yields, as well as economic viability and scalability to the long term. We're starting with different crop development and production systems like hydroponics, greenhouses, hoop houses, raised beds, as well as larger scale field production in order to get a better, well-rounded picture of what we can produce, where we can produce it, and how to best produce it. This is an example of where we can produce the right plant in the right place. As you can see here in the green, that's where we can produce the rubber dandelion or the Russian dandelion. And the brown is where we can produce guaiuli. The temperate regions where we're looking at rubber dandelion production, those are going to influence our production decisions because we can't manage temperate crops in the same way we produce and manage the desert crops. And what does this mean on the larger scale? Well, here in Tardis, what we're doing is we're improving our crops, and then we're translating those to larger scale field production systems that are sustainable and optimized for the best quality and the best production that we can do. And then that's going to be moved to our focus area on latex and rubber engineering, where we're doing product development and innovation. And this, if we bring it back out to a wider viewpoint, we want to look at the system scale. We want to impact this on a larger and more widespread national scale. We're taking our discoveries and going from engineering to scaling them up as we go and improving the adoption and infrastructure. And so to conclude, by translating plant science into resilient latex and rubber crops, and sustainable materials, we can build better systems that support people, industry, and the planet. These are just a few of the companies that we are partnering with right now, and if you're interested in joining this list, please scan the QR code. Thank you.